Hi, and welcome back to Yeti at Large. Today we're going to examine the strength of a community by looking at East Palestine, Ohio and Lockerbie, Scotland. Hi, and welcome to Yeti at Large. This is a channel focused on making the most out of what you have, no matter where you're at. Thanks for tuning in and helping out. Here at Yeti at Large, collectively our hearts break for the people affected by this railway derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Our hearts break for those people, and we wish them the best of luck and a speedy recovery, although I think we can all realistically know that this is going to be a very long and difficult road ahead. I'm hoping to touch on this subject more in the future when it's largely out of the mainstream media, and we're going to do that today by comparing the fine community of East Palestine with Lockerbie, Scotland. Now, I was in public safety for over a dozen years, and the area that I patrolled had a large railway running right through the middle of it. And I've seen those tanker cars with everything on them from the vinyl chloride that spilled to anhydrous ammonia to you name it. And I was motivated to increase my personal safety and my ability to respond and assist the community. After all, service to community is the highest order of why I was in public safety. Now, I got on the BNSF Railway and Pipeline Safety Committees, which was a two-way communication street and an opportunity for public safety people to learn more about bills of lading, manifests, hazmat placards, and how those work and help us to respond. And I'm going to start right here in the beginning with two very important issues. If you are involved in railway safety or the Department of Transportation, NTSB, anybody in the know and the say, I threw out an idea a few years ago and it was dismissed as being cost prohibitive. But I'm going to put that idea out forefront, and then I want to teach our viewers what I refer to as the rule of thumb. And this is about you and your family's personal safety. You've all seen the diamond hazmat placards that are on the side of semi-trucks, on shipping containers, and on trains. And they have a 4-digit number. Some of them will have stripes, red, black, and other figures on there to indicate to you how flammable, explosive, caustic the material on board is. That 4-digit number can be utilized by going to an emergency response guidebook, or now there's apps available, to identify those, and that'll tell you, does this stuff react to air? Does it react to water? Is it heavier than air? Is it flammable? Is it explosive? What's the boiling point? What's the flash point? What's the inhalation hazard? And on and on and on. I've always thought that that app needs to have a photo option built right into it so that me as a public safety individual can see a truck or see a train, take a picture of that plaque, and it will automatically link the picture to the 4-digit number and identify what was in it. Safety is speed sometimes. The idea that I had put out is those diamond-shaped hazmat placards are typically plastic. They burn quite easily. I noticed years ago that our state in Arizona went with a flat license plate, and when the cars were involved in a fire, whether it be a crash, a criminal type fire, or a suicide, the first thing that I would lose was the ability to easily identify the car by the license plate because it's flat and all the paint or the ink burns off of it and I can no longer read it. Reading a VIN number on a burnout car is not as easy as it sounds sometimes. Those will melt away too because they're typically soft aluminum. The old license plates with the numbers stamped into them are still readable after a fire. You may not get the state all the time, but you can do a search of all 50 states and maybe you'll find that car by that license plate. And that got me thinking about the hazmat placards on the sides of trains and trucks. They're thin plastic and they've got a ton of information until they get hot and burn, and then it's all gone and they're unreadable. And that delay in trying to identify what's in that burning semi or that burning tank car is very dangerous. It's dangerous to the community, to the responders, and to the personnel working on the train or the truck. I had suggested years ago that for those placards where they know they're going to be hauling dangerous material, think about a truck full of just Bic lighters. Those are bombs, and you've got 80,000 of them on one truck. That placard should be made out of stainless steel, and the number that identifies the material should be cut out of the stainless steel. Then you can laminate it with plastic or however you want to do it with the printed material and the colors. Now, the only reason you would do that is in the event of a fire, all the colors and the plastic burn away, but a first responder, and we're going to talk about that in a second, a police officer, a highway patrolman, a firefighter, an ambulance driver, a railway worker, a utility guy, think of the power company or the water company, they could get that number even if that plaque was on fire. They could still identify what's in that container and make an appropriate response quickly. That idea was dismissed as being cost prohibitive. I don't think so. I know it's expensive, but it's the cost of doing business is expensive. I've often talked on this channel about first responder. I don't care for that title. To me, it's a way for entities who may not be pro-law enforcement to sound ingratiating to police, to sheriffs, to railway security, to federal agents. It's a way for them to sound ingratiating without actually being on record as saying that we support our police and our law enforcement. Here at Yeti at Large, we robustly support our police and our law enforcement before, during, and after the events of the last several years. We do believe strongly in self-discipline, peer discipline, supervisor discipline, and sadly the most difficult, community discipline last. We'll talk more about that in a different video. So I don't like that term because, again, it's a way of sounding ingratiating, and the way I can prove it is you never hear a media outlet talk about first responder brutality. At that point, it always becomes police brutality. And I'm not defending or excusing the behavior of anybody. I'm just saying it's bad language, and we don't go for that here at Yeti at Large. And on top of all of that, years ago, I discovered that you are the first responder, the neighbors, the community, the fellow traveler. More times than not, when I got on scene, there were already people on scene doing their best to render aid, to control traffic, to make the scene safe. So you are the first responder, and as such, you need to be mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared to assist. And so that's why I want to teach you today the rule of thumb. And this is a very real thing. It might sound a little kitsch, but the rule of thumb. I've got my arm all the way out straight, and I hold up my thumb. I close one eye, and I point it at wherever the hazard is. Whether it's a burning vehicle, a derailed tank, a house fire, you name it, any disaster like that, that rule of thumb, if you close your one eye, put your hand out with your thumb, and you can still see it, you're too close. Back up. If you back up to the point where that entire semi is hidden behind your thumb, you are on your way to being at a safe distance from that type of event. The other thing that you need to do, and I'll warn you this is difficult, is you need the wind at your back so the wind is blowing that way. Think like a hunter. A hunter always wants their wind in the face. You want the wind at your back so that any fumes or leaking chemicals are blowing away from you. Now, if you're on an interstate, you might be in a real jam to be able to do that. At which point, if the wind is in your face, suggest you can't be far enough away from that. You know, you called 911 or you want to render aid to people on scene. You're making choices and taking responsibility for your welfare that we can't talk about here. That's something you need to do. But just understand that rule of thumb is very real, and I used it. Think of the size of a train derailment. You got to be a long way away from that to be safe. So there's my rule of thumb, and there's my idea for improving hazmat placards. Let's switch gears to preparedness. We've talked a lot about that here at Yeti at Large, and this is a perfect example, a train derailment of preparedness. The water is no longer consumable. Heck, the air is not breathable. The preparedness that comes along with having clothing, sleeping, and eating and drinking arrangements to either bug in or to bug out and get on the road is omni-important. Foods you can prepare with very little fuel. Foods you can eat without preparing. Change of clothes. Ability to filter air. Ability to shield your eyes and skin. Ability to clean up after exposure. All that kind of stuff goes into our preparedness plans. If you haven't watched any of our personal videos, I just reposted one the other day about some basic stuff. There are a lot of other great channels who are far more professional that go into much more depth on this, especially people with medical credentials. They're people that you could tune into those channels, listen to what they have to say, verify what we're all saying against other sources, and then make decisions within your skill set, within your capacity, that are in your best interest. The other thing that I was very moved about with the folks in East Palestine, Ohio, is the sense of community. And they were incredible how well they take care of each other. Being in a place with a strong community where folks take care of each other is a very important thing. A lot of these preparedness channels talk about the zombie apocalypse, nuclear war, the end of civilization, the breakdown of society. I typically don't see it that way. Approach has been to prepare like a cook on a ship. You're just a long way from shore, so the only thing you have to eat, drink, bathe, and deal with medical issues with is what you bring with you. These neighbors, I watched them repeatedly on the news cycles take such good care of each other, and I was very moved by that, and it reminded me of something from when I was much younger, and that was Pan Am Flight 103 that crashed over Lockerbie, Scotland due to a bomb. I wrote the dates down because I wanted to get them right. The Pan Am flight crashed into Lockerbie, Scotland on 12/22 of 1983. That's about 40 years ago at this point. And I remember seeing the news stories and the reports of the horrific devastation. The plane exploded in flight at 31,000 feet due to an improvised bomb made out of a tape recorder, crashed in several chunks, creating a lot of damage on the ground, destroyed several houses and killed many people on the ground. Now, the stories of the community out of Lockerbie, Scotland were very similar to what I heard in East Palestine, Ohio. People came out and attempted to render aid quickly, looked after their neighbors, and they even found one person alive in the plane after the crash, but she didn't survive to make it to the hospital. The people in the community opened their homes to all of the responders and the media and the dignitaries and officials that arrived on scene. The high school was turned into an emergency operations center, EOC. Then they went about the business as directed, collecting all the debris. And the last report I read, they collected over 4 million pieces of the airplane and pieces that could have evidentiary value. What I was most touched about, though, was after it had all been sorted through, the people of Lockerbie collected all the clothing that had no longer had any evidentiary value, washed everything, sorted it, and put it back into containers to be able to return it to the family members so that they could return as much as possible to the family members that just lost a loved one. I was very touched by that. That was an incredible example of what everyday blue collar, salt of the earth, your neighbors, common folk do to take care of each other. We've seen a lot of those examples, and I'm sure in the coming days and weeks, we're going to hear more about those coming out of Ohio. This is not over for a long time for these poor people. The first thing I thought of was in the late 60s when I was born, and I'm pronouncing it wrong, the Cuyahoga River in Ohio caught fire. It was so polluted, a river caught fire. Now, it had done it many times before because of the pollution, but this time it was so bad that it spurred the development and the formation of the Environmental Protection Agency, just downstream from where this disaster happened. And to see the response, fill in your reaction here, I'm not going to give you one today, but to see the response from all the alphabet agencies leaves a lot of people asking a lot of questions. The first person on scene is incident commander, and you remain incident commander regardless of your rank or experience until you have briefed out whoever is designated to be the next incident commander. That's the second operational cycle. At the end of that second operational cycle, something the size of what just happened in East Palestine would clearly qualify as a type 1 incident. That's very large. I think of wildfires in my personal experience, incidents that continue to grow and require a larger response. And as each one of those incident cycles end, the next one begins with a proper briefing and resources are being mobilized. That's when you will commonly see the incident commander and the PIO, Public Information Officer, start to give daily briefings, start to get information out. Now, it's nice to inform the press and the media to let them see what's going on and to be able to get news out. But it's far more important to inform the local community, and the media can be very helpful with that. Where to go, what to do, what the exposure risks are, where resources are available, where assistance is available, when the next briefing is going to be. My experience here locally with everything from law enforcement to statewide to federal resources, I participated in that. and I found that ICS Incident Command System works very well. It may be happening now, but it was definitely slow to get started. And that bottleneck of timely, important information in the early moments of an incident can be critical. If you've made it this far, thank you. I want to thank you so much for being part of this community. We're growing and earning one subscriber at a time, and I'd have it no other way. Please like, subscribe, share this channel with a friend. Definitely leave us a comment down below, letting us know other topics you'd like to see. I really want to get back to doing food, and I'm going to tell you, my #1 viewer has requested that I make French eclairs. It's by far and away the single most important thing in my culinary planet, and we'll be doing those very soon. Take a moment and look at your preparedness regimen. Do you have 72 hours worth of food, water, medicine, clothing, and ability to move? Do you have that? If you don't, seriously look at where you can improve that and if it's right for you. If you're going to bug in a situation where the air and the water might be unsuitable outside, are you able to withstand that and to do that and to sit tight? Again, it's not the zombie apocalypse. It's not the end of civilization. It's a snowstorm like we had here that just put 4 feet of snow on the ground and has continued to bless us with about a foot every other week since then. It could be a train derailment. It could be Hurricane Katrina or Hugo or Ivan. Either way, please take the necessary steps to ensure that you, your loved ones, and your community have the best possible response and the highest degree of resilience.